And so in the end, we have to ask ourselves, this is not about nostalgia or even human rights, and it's not about looking back, it's looking forward. What kind of world do we want to live in? A monochromatic world of monotony or a polychromatic world of diversity? Margaret Mead, before she died, said that her greatest fear was that as we drifted toward this blandly amorphous world, not only would the entire range of the human imagination be reduced to a more narrow modality of thought, but we'd wake one day as from a dream, having forgotten that there are other possibilities for life. The issue isn't freezing people in time. It's not about the traditional versus the modern. It's about the rights of free peoples to choose the components of their lives. It's not about denying anybody the genius of modernity, but rather to ensure that those who engage with modernity on their own terms, and those terms don't demand the death of their ethnicity. And the reason this is so important is because culture is not decorative. Culture is not trivial. Culture is not the songs we sing or the clothing we wear. Ultimately, what culture is, in every society, is a body of moral and ethical values that we envelop each individual human being with to keep at bay the barbaric heart that history shows us, sadly, can pop up in any society. It is culture that is the glue of civilization. It is culture that allows us to make sense out of sensation, to find order and meaning in a universe that may have none, to do what Abraham Lincoln said, always seek the better angels of our nature. And if you want to know what happens when culture is lost and when people either through coercion or their own volition turn their backs on tradition, often aspiring to a level of affluence which will always remain elusive, securing in disaffection, often alienation, but a spot on the lowest rung of an economic ladder that goes nowhere. You just have to look at the points of chaos around the world. And the reason the voice of anthropology is so important is that every conflict ultimately is a story of culture. The curse of humanity since the dawn of awareness has been cultural myopia, the idea that my world is the real world and everybody else is a failed attempt at being me. Americans are often accused of that, but all peoples suffer that. I mean, most indigenous societies, you translate the name they have for themselves, it means the people, the implication being that everybody else is a bloke, the blokes beyond the hill are savages. The word barbarian comes from the Greek word barbarous, one who babbles. If you didn't speak Greek, you didn't exist. When Herodotus returned to Athens and had the audacity to say that he had actually found some interesting things in the cultures of the world, Plato wanted him instantly condemned for betraying his own people. So this has been a long-time curse that in a multicultural, pluralistic world we can no longer indulge. And happily, nation states are finally coming to realize that indigenous people don't embarrass a nation state, they enrich it if the state's prepared to accept a diversity of life. In the Arctic, when the British first arrived in my own country of Canada, they took the Inuit to be savages. The Inuit took the British to be gods. Both were wrong. And what the British failed to understand was that there was no better measure of genius than the ability to survive in a harsh environment where everything had to be forged from the cold. The Inuit didn't fear the cold, they took advantage of it. The runners of their sleds were made of fish. The structure of the sleds were made of meat. They often said the great thing about an Inuk sled is if you ran out of food, you could always eat your sled.